Ladies and gentlemen, SideStrafe back with another episode of the Strafing Run, of course designed to keep you up to date on a fairly regular basis. And this game in the background, I think you may have seen it a few times. It's kind of popular in Russia and parts of Europe. World of Vehicles or something like that? I don't know. Anyway, all kidding aside, World of Tanks rolling around in my backgrounds. Gotta show you some of the matches that I've had earlier today. Nothing crazy, actually. Not the most fantastic ever, but fun nonetheless, and that's always what it's about. But before we get to the primary topic, which is actually War Thunder ground forces, I know you've been waiting for this. Everybody's been asking, oh, SideStrafe, did you see the live stream? Did you see the tech trees? What do you think? Where are your opinions? And, well, they're about to arrive. Stand by. But first and foremost, I want to talk to you a little bit about what's going on with the channel. There has been a lapse in content. I apologize. I've built a new machine. Specs are in the About section of the channel page if you're curious. But see, the thing I had going on with this system, I wanted it to be quiet as opposed to my last machine, which was so loud that it would bleed over into my microphone and I'd have to do a lot of post editing within some audio software. And it just was interfering with my quality. And so I wanted to build a machine that was powerful, that was going to run an overclocked processor with a nice video card that's also, of course, just going to be silent or quieter, not silent. But, I needed those sounds of fans suppressed. And I bought a Corsair 550D case, which has acoustic foam on all of the panels. It's an amazing case. It's beautiful. But it does run a lot warmer than my last machine, and if I want to keep it quiet, I'm going to have to throw a few more fans on the inside without opening up all the other ventilation that it has available. So I'm working on that. It's affected War Thunder in some cases. I had a few glitches. I think my video card is more so the problem. It's overheating a bit in some games, so I'm trying to capture footage in games that aren't really giving me too many problems. This one seemed to come out all right, but I'm still just kind of tweaking that system. So that's why there's been some delays in content. On top of that, there are a few titles that, once in a while, you just got to take a breather. You got to take a break, sit back, relax, and enjoy games for what they are. If you grind at a game too much, you start to almost find things to be negative about that maybe you shouldn't be. And sometimes I overgrind a game, and that has happened with World of Tanks in the past, and I don't want it to happen again. So I have to take some breaks here and there. I hope you understand. Again, I apologize. But, with that said, I've been joining the guys from No Guts, No Galaxy on their MechWarrior live streams. I've been doing some MechWarrior just to kind of have fun with a new title, and I really, one more time, really am. And in spite of certain flaws, it's just got some core gameplay that I think that is a lot of fun, and that I'm actually inherently decent at. So it's nice to have another game that I can put up there with the ones that I think I'm okay at, alongside shoulder to shoulder with World of Tanks. But let's get to what everybody's been asking about. War Thunder ground forces. Let's just get to it. I'm not even going to talk about any of the others. Let's just get to War Thunder because everybody's been asking me what my opinions are on the live stream footage and whatnot. And some of you have asked, why didn't you post the live stream footage on your channel like everybody else did? Well, the answer is because everybody else did, and I don't post live stream footage on my channel because the quality is substandard. It's usually 720p and the bitrate is terrible. It looks ugly. It doesn't go on my channel. On top of that, I didn't record it. It doesn't belong to me. It's not my footage. I didn't capture it, so it doesn't go on my channel. A long time ago, I did some trailer analysis videos for Battlefield, but since then, I've kind of decided, you know what? If I don't capture it myself, it just doesn't go on the channel. Because really, it kind of feels like you're mooching stuff from somebody else. I know I didn't build this game. I don't build any of these games. It's not my game, but I'm adding commentary or value to it. I'm giving them customers and whatnot through doing this as well. But I don't know, just something about taking somebody else's footage that I can't gel with. There may be some times where developers like, hey, SideStrafe, could you do something with our trailer and just do a discussion about it or post commentary over it, that's one thing. But they didn't come to me. I'm not going to take their footage. That's just something I believe in. It's no disrespect to anybody that did take that footage and put it on their channel. But you have to be, honest with yourself and kind of look at why they do it sometimes. Let's face it, it's a view grabber. There's not a lot of War Thunder Ground Forces footage on YouTube, and maybe some of those individuals are saying, hey, I'm just going to take this, put it on my channel, slap tanks on it, and say, look what I got, and try to grab some views. Well, I make a living off of YouTube, but I'm not that hungry for money that I'm going to resort to those types of tactics. Again, no disrespect intended. Whatever anybody else wants to do, that's their business. I'm just telling you what I believe in and how I roll. So there's that. I'm sure I've upset hundreds of people, as I usually do every time I make a strafing run video. But so is life. Thick skin, ladies and gentlemen, get some. But moving right along. Okay, so we had some live stream footage from an event in Russia where they showcased ground forces, and they also had some planes involved, which is interesting. The first thing I want to talk about is I did not expect to see planes fighting tanks as well, or planes involved with tanks in this strange arcade mode. I thought we might see that in a World War mode, as they've called it, but maybe they were just trying to showcase, like, hey, we have the technology, we can build this game where there are combined arms or planes and tanks together, and eventually ships perhaps. So maybe they just wanted to show off that they could do it. I don't think we're going to see that right off the bat. I almost feel like right off the bat, like when War Thunder Ground Forces beta hits, it's probably going to be strict tanks. But this is just me guessing. I could be wrong. Who knows? But I'll tell you what, if we have to deal with planes as tankers, that's a big threat. Planes were the largest threat to tanks in World War II, and really possibly any warfare scenario, because they can get at those weaknesses. They can carry payloads that are extremely powerful and able to even flip over the heaviest tanks. You ever see those pictures of a Tiger tank flipped over? Well, that's because it got bombed by a plane, usually. So that's why a lot of the times their ground forces would move when it's overcast, where there's a lot of clouds, so the planes couldn't see the tanks, and they would pray for rain and bad weather so that they couldn't, the enemy air forces couldn't get into the air. So there are definitely some interesting possibilities, and it could really come down to having to rely on some amazing pilots to keep the ground team safe. I mean, imagine something like Ram JB and Bismarck in the skies, keeping SideStrafe and his tanker buddies safe. Wow. On the flip side, imagine pug games where your pilots are terrible and you just get bombed to death. So I'm a little worried about it, but I'm kind of excited too. I don't know, we'll see. But, moving on from that, the footage just also showed the tanks behaving a lot more realistically. And World of Tanks never claimed to be a realistic game. They said, look, we just want to make an arcade game. We're not making a sim. Deal with it. And so that's what it is. It's a fantasy game. It's just for fun. Okay, I'm cool with that. But a lot of us have always wanted more. We just like, oh, I kind of wish there were no hit points. I kind of wish these tanks weren't invisible. I kind of wish it was nation versus nation. And I think that is why we want War Thunder Ground Forces to be successful, because they are kind of doing those things. Now, there has been some controversy over how they've changed their historical mode recently. There's been some alternate history things added. Obviously, the Germans didn't fly with the Russians, but, they've had to deal with a bad queue system, and, well, this is kind of their way of resolving it. So they have the events mode, which is more realistic, that takes its place, and I'm not really going to discuss that. But in any case, from what we saw, there's no hit point system, of course. We wouldn't expect that there would be, since there isn't one with the planes. And, a single shell penetration can take out a tank. And that's the way I like it, because it's going to come down to my motto that I've even had in the World of Tanks, which is don't get hit in the first place. Play it smart. Play it safe. Flank. Use cover. Go hold down. Maintain distance. You have a gun. The idea is that it shoots really far. use that range, use the environments, flank, tactics will be more important than ever before. I mean, you could flank somebody in World of Tanks, but boop, all right, I hit you in the back, I did 200 damage, but you still have a lot more left, and you're turning around, and you're a lot bigger than me, so, but imagine if it was like, oh, guess what, I just shot you in your weak spot. Enjoy that ammo fire, which we actually kind of saw animated. When you noticed in those videos, there was like a jet of flame coming out of the turret. Usually when you see something like that, there's been like an internal ammo explosion, and there's just like this crazy molten hot fire going on in the inside, and it's just insane. And it was nice to see within such a gorgeous game engine, the environments themselves. Something definitely to look forward to, because while the map was kind of small that we saw, I think it was there mostly for the event. They just wanted to get people in and out of combat quickly. I think we're going to see some really large levels that might even dwarf what we've seen in any other game. And if they maintain that level of detail, then we're definitely in for a treat. On top of that, the sound effects, also fantastic. Gaijin released a little video, a real-world video of them going out and recording sound effects from real tanks. They had a Chaffee, Sherman, Hellcat, and I believe a Panzer IV variant as well. And they're recording everything, the turret traverse, the gun elevation, the tracks, you name it, they were recording it. And you could hear it within some of that footage, and I really appreciate that they're taking the time to do that they're spending the money to do that, because the one major aesthetic complaint that I've had with World of Tanks is the fact that the sound effects have just been terrible. And if you've been around since beta, you know that they were much worse. In fact, I remember one of the gun sounds, the cannon sounds in World of Tanks, sounding like the shotgun from Quake 1. I kid you not. It was that bad. And yeah, it's just that, come on, audio is extremely important. It really, really is. And you don't have to be like an audiophile or expert to appreciate it. It's just, that's why we spend all this money on expensive gaming headsets and speakers. And come on, we want to hear some beautiful sounds. And I think that Gaijin's taking the extra step to deliver that. So that's nice. But, visually everything was great. We saw some nice physics. I'd still like to see a little bit more. We saw tanks flip over completely, whereas in World of Tanks, you can wreck pretty bad, but you can't actually flip your tank. So I mean, watch your step, ladies and gents. Watch your step, and things like that are really, really cool. I think that a lot more games should bring those elements into it when you're talking about vehicles. I think it's just important. It really makes you think twice about going up and over some sort of crazy hill or mountain. So nice touches there. Just generally seeing that engine, I can't say enough about it. Just seeing how beautiful the tanks look with their high resolution textures. I'm stoked. One thing I wasn't sure about, I really didn't like, was the fact that they had this artillery call-in button that elevated you above the tank more so you can look over, and then all of a sudden you drop down some artillery. I don't like that. Hopefully it's just some sort of temporary thing. I don't know why it was there. Maybe it's an arcade mode thing. I hope that doesn't exist within historical or full real, because obviously it's not real at all, and it's just silly. I don't know why they would add it. It doesn't make sense to me. There's nothing really like that in the Air Force portion of the game, but, I'm just going to assume that everything is subject to change, consider it alpha, beta, whatever, and go from there. I doubt that something like that would be in a historical or full real battle. But moving on to discuss the tech trees that were released. There's one for the Germans and there's one for the Russians. I'll have some links in the description below so you can find those. Some nice high resolution imagery. Unfortunately, it's just like 2D pictures, not really in-game models of the tanks, but it does show a nice variety. And the greatest thing about it is that it's not one tank and then on to the next completely different tank. It's actually like several different versions of the Panzer IV or several different versions of the T-34. It's not one tank gets 3 different guns that it shouldn't have had. It's here's the Panzer IV that had this gun, And now here's the Panzer IV that had this gun. And, you know, when they added a gun to a tank, they changed its designation. So it's great to see that. That's what's happening here. So we'll be at a certain tiering perhaps, and we're all going to be rolling out together in a whole bunch of Panzer IVs and Stugs and tanks that were just appropriate for the time frame, hopefully. And in some cases there might be some discrepancies, of course, when it comes down to the fact that, well, let's face it, the Germans kind of lost World War II and stopped making tanks at a certain point. And as we see by the Russian tech trees, they end up with some tanks that are post-war. And some people have been complaining about that. Well, the only thing I can say is that, each tank is an answer to the one before it. And you're going to see technology go into, Korean War era. Otherwise, they'd be stuck. They'd be stuck at whatever the Germans left off on. And that's just not going to work. So I can only say that don't worry. A lot of those final German tanks were powerful enough to deal with some of the threats that we see in the Russian tree. And, since the game isn't accounting for things like reliability, tanks breaking down or running out of fuel to an extreme degree, although that would be interesting. I mean, let's face it, there is a fuel mechanic in the game. Imagine if the map was so large that you would almost have to go to base and refuel, but I kind of doubt that the objectives would be that far apart that would be a problem. But it would be kind of cool, because imagine if like the big German tanks like the Tiger's like, oh, we're running out of fuel, and you just get like 4 Shermans flying around here like, oh, we're behind you, you're out of fuel, sucker. And that would make me kind of laugh, actually. But anyway, I mean, that's another thing actually that I'm probably missing what I was just talking about. But imagine if the game accounted for numbers, in that, well, what did the Allies really have on their side? I mean, Shermans weren't the greatest tanks on the planet. Let's face it. In fact, they were considered death traps by a lot of their crews. But we had a lot of them. Boy, did we ever. We outnumbered the Germans with those Shermans. And sometimes it would take maybe 4 of them to take out a Tiger. But, imagine if the game actually accounted for that. So there's a lot of balancing issues that I see that might be problematic with this title. But it'll be interesting to see how it pans out. I think that it's going to come down to clever tactics. I mean, you're going to have to know what you're doing. It's not just about, oh, I know what this tank does, I can read a Wikipedia page. No, it's about, do you know how to fight on the ground as a tanker? That's what it comes down to, ladies and gentlemen. So that's what I'm going to hope to convey. You can talk about tanks and the history all you want. The information's out there. Go get a book from the library and you can find out about what tanks and when they were built and what they have on them. What's going to come down to is just how to use them properly. And hopefully I can deliver that unto you. So, beyond that, just looking more into those tech trees, there's just a lot of the different variants of a single chassis. And I think that that's important. The fact that there's going to be that type of historical accuracy is just major, and I'm excited to have to deal with a game like that. And really, the truth is, that's what I always wanted from a tank game. It's just that you deal with what you got, and you learn to adapt and just have fun with it. Again, it's no insult to World of Tanks. Wargaming never said they wanted to make a realistic game. They just said that they wanted to make this arcadey game that's fictional and whatever. Which means that they need to stop citing historical accuracy when they nerf a tank. But, I digress. So, beyond that, I think that mostly covers everything that there really is. There's just not enough information to get really in depth with it. You can, of course, look up the tanks via the tech tree and research them further to see what kind of armaments they had and to get an idea of how to play them. But at the end of the day, you can really, if you're good at what you do, you can take a pretty bad tank and work miracles with it. Because it's just going to come down to training in this game. The learning curve is going to be a little bit steeper than it is, I think, in World of Tanks. And again, I like that because in this day and age, we just don't have enough games that are difficult, and that's always a good thing. to see a developer say, you know what, we're going to make this game a little bit more difficult because that's what we want to make. So that's cool. But the other thing that I think many of you will appreciate, one of the complaints I've always had with my videos is that, you know, SideStrafe, you do great on your own, but there are times where if you had a team to work with, you probably would have won a battle. And I agree 100%, but sometimes it comes down to the availability of an individual or getting people that I feel are just like-minded. I'm kind of serious when it comes to certain games. I can be silly when it comes to other things, but when it comes to playing a tank game or an armored combat game, I'm in it to win it, and I really get military tactical about it, and I need people that are like-minded. And you know, I've been flying around with Ram, JB, and Bismarck. They've been teaching me a lot about planes. I've never pretended to know anything about planes, so I always tell you guys, hey, you want to learn? Then head over to their channel. You want to hang out with me while I learn? You know, then watch some of my videos there. But when it comes to tanks, now it is up to me to teach you how to become an armored god. No, but you know, the nice thing is Ram and Bismarck know a fair share about armored vehicles as well, so we'll be sharing knowledge and playing together, of course, because there are no region restrictions. The dumbest thing about World of Tanks, locking me away from playing with a lot of cool people on the European servers and whatnot. We can just play together as we have been with War Thunder anyway. So I'll be playing with them. I've got Darren and Phil, the guys from No Guts, No Galaxy. You know them best for MechWarrior Online. They love armored vehicles, period, so we'll be driving around with them as well. And I don't know if any of you that know Phil from NGNG know that he was in the Marine Corps as a tanker and an Abrams, so he does bring in some real-world experience. We'll be playing with him, and perhaps he'll be teaching me a thing or two, as long as the game is realistic enough that those things would actually apply, because there are some things that work in the real world that just don't work in a video game, depending on how it's built. But you know, it'll be cool just to have that kind of feedback. And we're all just, you know, armor and mech and tank nuts, so there's definitely no shortage of people to play with this time around. And of course, there are no region restrictions. So with that said, I'm sure many of you are wondering why I didn't mention the Mighty Jingles. I get this question all the time. When are you two going to play together? The test server's up, make a World of Tanks video together. And the only thing I can say to cover my butt is that I've invited him on many occasions to join me within War Thunder Air Forces. He is always welcome in any game that I play, but you can only really ask somebody so many times. So if you have further questions in regard to that matter, you know who to direct them to. Have fun with that, Jingles, if you're listening. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, it is time that I thank you so very much for joining me. I appreciate it more than you can possibly imagine. You have to really, really trust me on that. It definitely means a lot that you view my content, and you're the reason that I continue to do this. It's a lot of fun. Yes, I make a living off of this, but at the end of the day, without viewers, without people that support what I do, it's meaningless. So thank you many, many times over. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me. I will definitely see you on the next one.